Greetings my dear friends and welcome back to RoundSquare. Today we are playing The Sims 4 and we're starting a brand new project. This is the European Townhouse, which some of you may recognise from a previous sim game, The Sims 2. And here we have it. So this is a new project which I decided to come up with, just looking for some inspiration for The Sims, where I am now going through some of the older builds from The Sims 2, now that I've finally got it working on my computer, and trying to redo them using The Sims 4. Now this has been a very interesting experiment because I've been torn between whether or not to make the build exactly as it appears in The Sims 2 or do like a Sims 4 version of how we would expect it to be if they made it today. So here's a little experiment and I hope you enjoy it. So this was actually something which I think I got a little bit in over my head with because I thought, you know what, this is going to be easy. Sims 2 houses, they're simple. Really simple. But then, like I said, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it as an exact replica or if I wanted to do like my own personal take on it. So yeah, there was a lot of experimentation that went on with this one. But on the whole, I think it turned out quite well. And it was definitely a fun little project to do. Definitely something to help get the creative juices flowing for The Sims 4. So yes, this is the European Townhouse 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom from The Sims 2. Now this was one of the houses which would have appeared originally in the lots bin at the bottom of the screen, so they weren't actually loaded into the neighbourhood, but it was sort of like, it was a catalogue of pre-made buildings which you could put into your neighbourhood if you so wished. And this was my personal favourite of the original houses, and whenever I'd make myself in The Sims, because let's be honest, I'm incredibly self-absorbed, this would be the house that I would want to move into. But it's very interesting architecturally because I certainly wouldn't describe this as a townhouse. It has a very vernacular feel to it almost. There's a lot of craftsman and shaker styles used in its construction, a lot of natural woods. So that doesn't really scream townhouse to me, but it really fitted the aesthetic for The Sims 2. Strangely, a bit more difficult to recreate in The Sims 4, but that's its own thing, I suppose. One thing that was really interesting about doing this project was I was able to sort of notice the some of the major differences between how the aesthetics in The Sims 2 are compared to The Sims 4. I've always had the suspicion, for example, that everything in The Sims 4 seems very tall and very thin. Like the beds are so thin and long, and the height as well, like the stairs seem to just go up forever, even on the lowest wall setting. And building this, having a direct side-by-side comparison, I could really notice that. So when you saw that front-facing view of the Sims 2 version, you could see that it looked a lot wider and generally felt in a direct comparison, it looked a little bit more in proportion, I'll say that much. The Sims 4 by comparison has everything. This build just looked very tall. It was very tall and very thin, and it kind of looked like someone had scaled it and just stretched it upwards. That's the only way I could really describe it. But, you know, different games, different aesthetics, I suppose. Anyway, so this is me finishing up making it as it appeared exactly in The Sims 2, but I think we'll leave it there because now we are going to renovate it. Okay, so the first thing I did was I moved it to a more appropriate lot, given the style of the game. Originally it was a Newcrest, but it just didn't fit right. So instead I've moved it over to, I think this was Brindleton Bay, a little lot hiding in there. It's either that or it's a Windenburg lot, potentially. I don't recall now. But yeah, because this house just gave off such craftsman vibes, it just didn't scream townhouse to me, so I decided to put it in a more rural location. but I really tried to keep it with the European influence. So I want this to feel very, I don't know, maybe either Scandinavian or perhaps maybe Germanic in terms of its location. I wanted everything to feel a bit natural, and I actually had to rebuild this house twice because the first sim that I created it for, I had this idea that they were like this person who was really into crafting and traveling, and that's why the house was very vernacular, and he'd essentially maybe not made the house, but he'd certainly made a lot of things for the house, shall we say. But then I got halfway through it and I felt like I was just kind of getting further and further away from what it was meant to be. So we've redone it basically, and I've had to take a few liberties. Now, one thing that I've really struggled with in this one is the location of the bathroom. So in the Sims 2 version, this bathroom would have a little door which would open up onto the balcony above the front door, which doesn't really make sense to me, I think. So I sort of juggled around with the layout of the house a little bit and decided first of all just to try and make it like the top of the landing, but then I realised, I don't know, I just thought that was wasted space, even though it did make more sense to me. So that does become the bathroom again eventually, to try and keep it more true to form, but I tried to do my own little take on it to make it look a little bit more believable. Again, with the layout of the house, I also decided to change the layouts of the rooms, so I basically ended up creating this as a two-person house, which I think was more believable for a townhouse. So there's now, where I'd tried experimenting with the bathroom, that then became a secondary bedroom, which in this case is used as an office for the sim. But it meant that I've had to add in a few more walls, and I decided to give a little bit of an extension at the back for the kitchen, which is why it's a bit of a different shape. Which in one way is a little bit of a shame, but in others, I think it's just a bit more realistic, a bit more pleasing, and it generally just works a bit better with The Sims 4's aesthetic, I suppose you could say. So now we're going to move on to the kitchen, which pushed me out of my comfort zone a little bit, I'll say that much. I'm very much used to creating kitchens that always tend to look the same at the end of it, but this time I wanted to create a more natural colour scheme and something which just looked more neutral, I suppose, and I've used it as an excuse to really try and play around with some of the cabinets and additional storage spaces for the kitchens, because I never really normally touch them. And for the more awkward spaces, I've come up with this sort of set of cabinets which you can also inset the fridge into, which you'll see in a little bit. But I think it made the kitchen look a little bit more realistic in a way, purely because normally I don't tend to bother. I might have like one or two cabinets like overhead, which if you go into anybody's house, it's not really the case. Normally they're swimming in them because that's where you keep all your plates and all your crockery and all that jazz. So yeah, I tried to sort of push the boat out a little bit on this one. I'm quite happy with how it turned out though. And also tried using a different colour scheme as well. So again, going back to the whole neutral tones, I also wanted to give the kitchen a bit more of a sort of brassy, coppery kind of tone. As opposed to like the normal blinding white, ultra-modern or black kitchens that I would tend to do. I wanted to go for something a little bit more harmonious to the colour scheme. So again, yeah, it was just pretty fun to do. And I'm pretty pleased with how it came out. I think I normally struggle a lot with putting character and personality into kitchens. And I basically just wanted to create this to be like, this is for a modern professional, or a professional couple, and give it like that very clean, very organised and orderly but realistic lived-in kind of feeling to it. So I don't normally bother putting in anywhere near as much decoration as what I do for these, but I tried to put in a few more things just to make it a bit more lived in, shall we say. But yes, it was very important for me to try and make this feel and look very, sort of a mixture between borderline show home and actually personal, if that makes sense. So I did want everything to be nice and prim and proper, and everything had its place. It's supposed to look very IKEA-esque, very modern, very sleek, quite Scandinavian influence, I would say, but also tell a little bit about the people who lived there, at least. So I wanted to make sure that it had a certain style and that we tried to keep things to that sort of natural feel that this quote-unquote townhouse, you can't see me doing finger indentations, yeah, it was really important for me to try and keep the aesthetic. So I tried to go for a lot of woods, a lot of neutral tones as well, with like small little pops of colour here and there from like the sofa, and there's going to be some chairs and just things to kind of give a bit more life to the room. But that said, I still wanted it to look very professional, shall we say. Everything has its place. That's definitely the vibe that I wanted to give off here. And yeah, I think in all things considered, it worked out quite well. It was difficult, I'll say that. It was a real challenge at certain times, but it also gave me the opportunity to experiment with some more liberties that I wouldn't normally take. So it was fun. I really enjoyed doing it, as frustrating as it was. And as I say, after having to rebuild it again completely because I wasn't happy with how it was going before, yes, I think this house just generally suits the people I imagine living here a lot better. So I made a sim for this to get the footage, and I had this impression that he was just this single, or, you know, in terms of marital status, single professional who was just, you know, he worked in an office, but he was very modern. He was one of these somehow millennials who have their shit together. I don't understand how any person born in my age range has that shit together still, but he's got it figured out. He's got a nice house. He's probably got a girlfriend or a partner who he sees every so often. You know, they come and stay over, and you know, he's very happy with his life and where he is in it. So yeah, very, very pleased with this. So originally the bedroom was actually completely open plan, so it was more of like a studio house in The Sims 2. You just come up the stairs and that whole space was the bedroom, but I didn't like that too much. I've never been a fan of that much open plan living, so I decided to, as you can see, I've split this off and made a smaller room, but obviously you can do a lot more in this space in The Sims 4 than you could with in number 2, so that still worked out very nicely. And of course, because I'm a whore for plants, there's just greenery everywhere in this house. Absolutely everywhere. The second bedroom, which I accidentally created when I was experimenting with with an extra bathroom, this I decided to use as an office space. I can't imagine this sim who lives here to be having a family, or if he is, then maybe he's going to have a family, but, you know, he's maybe planning for it in the future, but he's just not there yet. So I've just used it as a home office for the time being, which is very appropriate given the current, shall we say, world climate. So yes, I get the impression that he's one of these people who he can either go work in the office, or sometimes he'll have home days and just work from home. His workplace are very pleased to do that, but he takes his work very seriously, very hard working. Don't know what he does. I'll just say that much. He is a nondescript pseudo-European professional, the kind that you see on all the magazine and catalogue covers. But what was fun is that it allowed me to get some of my old IKEA-loving aesthetics into play. So there's just plants everywhere, and pictures everywhere, and random pretty little things which I normally wouldn't bother looking at because I just didn't have that much creativity. in the past, basically. But I can say this now because I don't work there. I used to work for IKEA, so I've been influenced a lot by a lot of Scandinavian design, for example, and this really gave me the opportunity to kind of play with that. Now, one thing very interesting with this one is that I actually spent some time with the landscaping. I never touch the landscaping in The Sims 4. I hate landscaping in The Sims 4. I'm simply not creative enough for it, and I'm happy to admit that. But because I picture this being in such a foresty sort of area, I really wanted to give the impression that in the summertime they would probably spend a lot of time outdoors, but it's not like they have this prim perfect garden that, you know, you might see in like I don't know, American McMansions, for example, where everything has its specific place. All the order and organisation is inside the house, but I still wanted it to look like they enjoy the outdoors, but they enjoy it more for what it is rather than what they can do with it, if that makes sense. So I gave them a patio area, nice little eating area, but I also wanted to just kind of make it feel a bit more natural by putting in more small bushes, and around the edges, for example, you know, it's not prim and proper, there's grasses and moss everywhere. Yeah, I wanted to give the feel that this is someone who maybe they live sort of on the outskirts of town, so maybe they have like a nearby wood to their house, which, I mean, on this lot actually works out very well because the lot opens into a park at the back, so that works out quite nicely. But yeah, I just wanted to give it I think it gave it a little bit more texture, and was strangely kind of fun to do. Anyway, I think we're about to wrap this up now, so thank you everybody so much for joining me on this little experiment. I hope it worked out somewhat well. I may do more of these, haven't decided yet, but I think regardless it was a bit of a fun project, and I've just been so inspired watching other simmers, rather up-and-coming simmers, I shall say, who have been doing a lot of renovation builds, for example. So this was my way of doing, easing myself into that and releasing those creative juices. So yes, it looks like we're about to wrap up. I hope you enjoy the house tour. I haven't done one of these in a very long time, so apologies if I'm a little bit rusty, but either way, I hope it's something that you can enjoy, and if you'd like me to do any more of these, then please let me know. I may do, I may not, like I say, I haven't really decided, but as always, I would love to get some input. Anyway, I'm rambling, so I shall see you all in the next video. I hope you're all staying safe, and have a wonderful day, everybody.